I love to talk. I love to hear my own words. I love for you to hear my words. But the most important thing for me to do, and I would offer for you to do, is to listen. It was May of 1995. I was in California for a work conference, and my wife called me in the hotel. It was all going great. I was, oh yeah, one thing's wonderful. We had this great stuff. I got a chance to present. I was excited. Life was good. And then she told me that my father was in the hospital. And I didn't know how to process that because I really wanted to talk about my story. He'd gone over the handlebars on his bike. He had cracked his skull in 7 places, and he was in the hospital. Well, I had 2 more days of conferences, and I couldn't come home. And I'm a couple of thousand miles away, and I wanted to know everything. Well, when I got back, I got to the hospital, and my dad, although his head was cracked in 7 places, which some say I share genetically with him from that same thing. I've got a cracked head too. He would get up in the middle of the night and wander the hospital. So the hospital people were a little bit crazy about that. They're like, old guy, cracked head, wandering the floor, not a good thing. So they asked if somebody could stay the night. So I came and I'd spend the night, I'd sleep on a little couch, and when he'd get up out of bed, I'd hop up and go, Dad. He'd say, John, what are you doing here? And I'd explain to him that he'd had a bike accident, his head was cracked, and that these things came. Well, he mentioned to me that he couldn't really lift his arm. I said, well, could you lift your arm before? And he said, yeah, pretty much. I said, what have you told the doctor? He said, nah, I didn't want to bother him. He's busy. So the doctor came the next morning, and he said, how's everything? And my dad goes, everything's great. I said, well, Dad, doesn't your shoulder hurt? And he said, yeah. And then so the doctor did another MRI, and they found out he had a broken neck. So he's been in the hospital for 6 or 7 days with 7 cracks in his head and a broken neck, and they didn't even know it. They put in a titanium rod and a couple of screws, and then the really fun thing happened. One of his screws came loose. Now, my father didn't find that anywhere near as funny as you just did. You didn't find it anywhere near as funny as I did. I said, Dad, I've always thought you had a screw loose. And now we have a doctor on record designating that. But I never would have gotten to that place. They might not have caught it if I hadn't been willing to listen. We got to, a couple years later, he and I are sitting at a Michigan football game, and Michigan at that point was 6-0, 7-0, and my father said to me, if Michigan goes to the Rose Bowl, would you want to go to the Rose Bowl? And I thought, go to the Rose Bowl? Are you crazy? Why would I do that? I can watch the game for free at home. I sit in a comfortable chair. There's not people behind me crowding me and yelling and spilling things. There's no line at the restroom. There's no food. But I didn't say that. Instead, I said, I don't know, Dad, never thought about it. And then he said, I've wanted to go my whole life. And my paradigm changed drastically in that moment. Because now, this wasn't just a football game. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with my father. So I went home, talked to my wife, and said, if Michigan wins the Big Ten, I'd like to go to the Rose Bowl. And she says, well, you mean if you can get a reasonably priced ticket? And I said, well, yeah. But we had different definitions. My idea of a reasonably priced ticket was if I sell my car and walk to work. Her idea of reasonably priced ticket was a couple $100. So we went, we enjoyed it, it was a good thing. Then the following year it became a tradition, not a once-in-a-lifetime event. And we went to several things. Then in 2010, my father got real sick. And my stepmother called me up and was asking some questions and doing things. And I wanted to advise her. I wanted to tell her all the things that she needed to do. But I stopped talking for just a moment. I listened to her, and I heard her heart that her and my dad couldn't do it without help. If he was to be there with her, in her condition, with her arthritis, she'd have had to put him in a nursing home, and he wouldn't like that. He would have hated it. So I made the choice to spend weeks and weeks and weeks down there. I was there around the clock. I missed a lot of meetings that year. It went through the whole time. But if I hadn't listened, I would have done what most people do in that circumstance. They would have said, they're adults. It's their life. Let them do what they need to do. But I had a chance to spend time with my father as he headed towards death. And he gave me a chance to listen. Now, I gotta tell you, he's an old guy, and he's a little bit crazy, reminds me somewhat of me, but every day we'd go through the same drill. My father would say to me, you know, John, I need something out of my top drawer. And I'd say, well, what do you need, Dad? And he'd say, well, I can't really tell you, but I'll know it when I see it. So I'd go and get the top drawer, and I'd set it in front of him, and he would pick up each of his treasures, and he'd look at them, and at first, it made me crazy. I'm like, what are you looking for in this drawer? What is going on? But I stopped and I listened, and I heard his heart. There was something in there. When we looked at that drawer 100 times in those last couple months of his life, I'm not sure what he was ever looking for. I didn't find it while he was alive. I didn't find it when he died. In his last week of life, and again, this is another reason why you should listen rather than talk, we're laying there in bed. He's in his hospital bed. I'm in the little twin bed over here. And when he got to bed, that meant stay awake and keep your son awake. And when I got to bed, I was thinking, oh, Lord, please let me sleep. So my father would bang on the rail with his ring. And he said to me, well, John, I think I'm ready to go. And me not being a good listener, I said, go where? I said, because if you're talking about going to the bathroom, we can go. If you're talking about getting out of bed and going somewhere else, we ain't getting out of that bed until 7 in the morning. That's our timetable, Dad. And he said, I don't know. And then it occurred to me what he was really talking about is he was ready to die. And I went, you mean like go to heaven? He said, I think so. And those were the last words my father said to me. And I never would have heard them if I hadn't listened. I recommend you